Hello everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome to Nelson Horsemanship. Today we are going to give you a demonstration on lunging. This is Boss, he's a quarter pony stallion. He is fitted in a leather halter, a nylon lunge line, and I have him in some protective boots, some bell boots and a sport boot. Always recommend using some kind of protection on their legs when we're lunging. I don't necessarily always do it, but I try to as much as possible. Gloves, another recommendation. I'm going to put my other glove on now. Lunging can be such a useful tool, but it can also be one of the hardest and most frustrating groundwork exercises to learn. We are going to set him up with the halter set up so that it will pull him to the inside of the circle, where it will pull his whole head around. If it's set here, it will pull just the bottom. See how his head tilts? So we're going to hold the bottom of the halter, unclip the lunge line, and clip it to the side. This way we're pulling his head, which will help him bend. He's going to go to sleep. Bend, oh, something interesting over there. Bend his whole head around rather than tucking his nose. You'll notice he tucks his nose anyways. Not ideal, but we are working on some fitness problems with him. Always lunge in a nylon or leather halter. Rope halters have a tendency, because you can only clip them from here, to slide up. I've seen them go right in the horse's eye, and that's not something we want. You can also lunge in a bridle or a lunging cavesson if you know how to correctly and safely use them. Always make sure that your lunge line is safely looped. There's no knots or tangles in my lunge line. You can go back and forth over your hand instead of making loops. I always set mine up so it feeds out from the top or from the inside, but it's always layer after layer so it will unravel evenly. I'm going to take him towards my lunge whip. He's going to talk to the ladies, and we're going to show you some body position information. Don't look at her. Okay, since my pivot is not cooperating with us, I'm going to hope that I can keep him where you can see him. Okay, so this is the side view of our horse. He's got his halter on, his lunge line clipped to the side. I'm going to grab my lunge whip before I send him out. But before I even send him out, we're going to divide him into 3 pieces when we're lunging. So we'll cut him here. This will be our front half and our braking / steering end of the horse. And then we're going to break him here. This is our neutral position. This is what's going to help us keep him out on a circle. And then our back end here is going to be our gas pedal. So depending on what I want him to do is going to depend on where I am going to position my body in those 3 areas. You're good. Whoops, missed the tail. So to get started, I actually need my lunge whip on this side. I'm going to break my lunge line apart so that I have the end that goes to my horse and the tail in my other hand. My lunge whip is going to go behind me or in front of me, like so. I tend to start with it behind me till I get a feel of what the horse is like. Some horses are really sensitive to the lunge whip and you just need to bring it out like so. And other horses, you'll need to use it a lot more to get the same response. I was going to say something important, but now I've forgotten it. Okay, moving on. I have my lunge line set up. My lunge whip is behind me. I'm going to send him out. So I'm going to come down to beside him. He knows I'm here. Get his attention on me. Now he knows what a lunge line is, so he knows what I'm going to ask. But this lunge hand is going to come up. The one with the rope closest to his face is going to come up to direct him where I want him to go. And this hand is going to come forward to help me engage him. And I'm going to cluck once for a walk. Boss, walk. Now I'm not going to go ahead and lead him. See what happens if I try to lead him out in a circle? He's just going to stop and face me. And I see that a lot with beginners, is they're always trying to lead them out into the circle, whereas we want to push him out. Good boy. Good boy. So I hold my lunge line like you do a rein. Now notice he quit there because I got ahead of him again, because I was trying to explain to you how I was holding the rope. So my body position now is neutral. I'm facing his belly. This horse is super lazy, so he'll be a good example of what not to do when we ask him for the canter. We really don't want to chase them. Good boy. So I want him to stay out. I don't want my lunge line dragging. I don't want to drop what's in this hand. I'm going to ask him, actually, first I'm going to discuss cues. To get a really effective horse that will lunge well, we need to be very consistent with our cues. So for my voice cues for most of the horses, unless they've been taught something different before I've gotten them, then I'll slowly change them over to my cues. I ask for a walk with 1 cluck, a trot with 2, and a kiss means canter. And I'm really consistent with that. And then to back that verbal cue up, we're going to use our body and our lunge whip. So if I, for example, I'm going to move him up this way so hopefully you can see better. Sorry, bud. Keep going. I know, confusing. So as you've seen right there, I had to use a little bit more of my whip to keep him going because I confused him a little bit when I was trying to move him away from you, or the camera, I guess I should say. So horses are a prey animal. Oh, boss. If we walk at them really assertively and aggressively, they're going to move away from that. Like if I walk at him like this, you can see he wanted to think about, oh my God, what's she going to do? But if I walk at him like this, he's not really going to think much about what I'm doing because I'm not perceived as a threat. Ruby, get going. So we really want to think about that when we're lunging them, is how our body is being projected to them will make our lunging much more effective. Ruby, get going. I don't need your help today. So I'm going to send him out again. So I did have to cluck a few times there and then reinforce with the whip. He wants to smell this poo here. We're always going to start with just our verbal cue and then get a little bit more assertive with it. I'm going to ask him to trot here. So I'm going to cluck twice. Boss. So as you've seen, I had to ask him 3 times and I progressively got more and more aggressive as I did so. And if I stay really consistent with him, he'll get better at just moving off with just the 2 clucks. So to bring him back down, I'm going to slow my body towards his head, tell him walk, good boy, or cluck once. I'm going to send him back into a trot. Last trot. See, this time I didn't have to ask him nearly as much as I did the first time because he's paying a little bit more attention to me. I'm going to let him go in a little bit bigger circle so we can hopefully ask for a canter. I know he's going to need more help with canter because he's quite lazy. So I'm going to get him into a nice forward trot. Now this is when people start to get, and I myself can too, get to where you want to rush him and push him. And you see how that just moved him out? It didn't move him forward. That's how people kind of get in a runaway situation on the lunge line. So boss. Good boy. Okay, he usually doesn't lope off that well. Good boy. Now I didn't make him maintain the canter. That wasn't my goal there. Good boy. And trot. So the footing's not super fantastic, so I'm not going to ask for a ton of canter. But if he hadn't picked up the canter, I would have reinforced it again with a progression of more intense or firm cues. Okay, I'm going to ask him for the canter one more time and then we'll go the other direction. Boss, canter. Oh, wrong lead. Good boy. Easy, buddy. Good Good boy. So you can see there for a second, and trot, I got a little bit chasey rather than pushing him forward. But I corrected myself and used my whip to back the aids up versus chasing him. And I'm going to lower this hand, relax, take a breath, and he's going to walk without me even asking him to walk. And if I keep relaxing, he'll actually stop. So you see there how he stops and turns in, and it's a bit of a naughty habit. One of those reasons being if he were to step forward, he would step right on my lunge line there. And I would prefer that we didn't do that. So I'm just going to coil him up here. And then I'm going to face away from him for a second, but keeping him in my peripheral, the lunge whip under my arm. I'm going to turn him to face you guys so you can see what I'm doing here. Whoops, I lost a loop. These lunge lines can be so crazy sometimes. Not ideal to just drop it like I just did either, because then he's got that big hunk of lunge line he can step on. Okay, so to go to the other side, we obviously can't just start lunging him from that side because the lunge line will pull forward or over his nose. So again, I'm going to hold the bottom of my halter, clip to the center ring. I'm going to switch sides with my whip, switch sides of my horse. I find the tail end of this whip is so slippery. And then clip to the side again. So now we're ready to send him the other way. I'm going to do it from this spot so that you can see maybe a different angle. I'm going to step back, arm's going to come up, whip hand's going to come up, tell him to walk. I'm going to try to walk him down that way again a little bit so I'm not so close to the camera, so hopefully he doesn't disappear. Good boy, as we're doing that. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure with the whip just to keep him going forward because I'm confusing him slightly as I drive him away from me rather than keeping him in a circle. All right, so I'm going to keep my lunge whip out in front of me this time. I ended up with it there anyways last time. Boss, turrot. So again, this way he needed a little bit of encouragement. If I waited a tiny bit longer, he probably would have picked up the trot. But I don't want to teach him that he can be a little bit lazy, because especially this guy, he'll slowly get a little bit lazier and lazier. And then I'm going to relax his hand, step towards his forehand, and tell him to walk. Now I'm going to try to drive him so he's about the opposite end of his circle as he is now and ask for the halt. So hopefully you can see my body position. Right now it's kind of towards his hip as I'm driving him forward, and then neutral, and then front. Ooh, stay there. Ooh, stay there. I'm hoping you can see that clearly where my body position was. And now I'm going to ask him to go again. This hand's going to come up. Whip's going to come. He thinks I want him to change direction. That's okay. So this is a position I see happen a lot with beginners, is they get here and the horse just backs up. If I look at him, that's what he's going to keep doing. So I need to turn my body a little bit away, keep his head here, and use the whip to get around his hip so I can get back into that pushing position. That was fantastic, boss. Thank you for doing that for me. So you see how important our body position is. And I didn't panic and I didn't get mad. If I needed to stop and pet his face and then walk down his body, that would have been perfectly fine too. So I'm going to ask him, ho. Good boy. And this time he stayed on the circle. So we're making progress. He went, oh, coming in was not the answer. This hand's going to come up. I'm going to step towards his hip and I'm going to cluck. Good boy. So you see there, he thought about coming in again because that's what we just did. And he was like, hey, that kind of worked for me last time. We're going to try it again. So we're going to try canter this way. I'm not going to go from a walk to a canter. He is not in good enough condition for that. But that is something you can teach them to do as they come into condition. He's such a muddy puppy because there's so much mud right now everywhere. Boss turrot. There we go. A little bit better than last time, but still not great. He's not an eager beaver, this guy. He'll go if he has to. Okay. There we go. Boy. Boss. Canter. Good boy on trot. So as you've seen, he made me work for that one a little bit. And I didn't chase him. I tried to keep the same circle and drive him with my whip and my voice versus chasing him. I'm going to try again, see if I can get a little bit more effort out of this guy. I'm just trying to wake him up a little bit. I've got a couple mares standing along the fence line here, so he's kind of watching them versus being enthusiastic. Canter! That was better. Good. He's cross-firing a little there. That's okay. Good boy. Easy. Now, if you can see his head walk very well. He's trying to pull out quite heavily. He is not the most balanced horse by any means. It's something we really have to work with. But if he gets heavy on the lunge line like that, I'm going to sponge with my hand while trying to maintain my pressure towards his rib cage to bend him back around. So we're going to go up to a trot again. Good boy. Don't smell your own poo. There we go. And trot. Good boy. So I really wanted to ask him one more time without making him maintain and walk that canter just so we can reinforce it. When you're first teaching your horse on the lunge line or with anything really, you're going to be really grateful for them just to do the action at first, and then we'll ask for more of it. So for example, if you picked up the canter for a stride, I'd be really happy. Tell him it's a good boy. And then the next time, once they were doing that easily, we'd ask for a little bit more canter, and eventually they'll be cantering full laps for you before you have to cue them to come down. Sometimes you have to reinforce that forward, but I don't worry about that right away. I worry about getting them to move into the gait first rather than maintain it. We can teach the maintaining of the gait over time. I hope that this was helpful. I know, I got behind you, or in front of you. So I just need to correct this so he doesn't pick that up as a naughty habit. Sometimes you'll have the opposite effect on a horse when you start lunging them too, and they'll want to barrel around and have the zoomies. If that's the case, pulling their head, I'm going to tell him that magical word and pull him in so you can see. Whoa! Pulling them in like so will stop them. You can also spiral them down into a smaller and smaller circle. The rubber stoppers come in fairly handy. Just make sure that you can let go of the lunge line if you get in that kind of situation where a horse is running and running. I always try to pull their front end in towards me. That will kick their back end out and they'll break gait. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit his ear with my extremely long lunge whip. Okay. Back to center. So I'm holding the center of the halter, clip on the center, coming to this side. And then this lunge whip feels like it's 10 bazillion miles long. And then we can walk him like so. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope you got some tips and tricks out of it. Boss was a pretty good boy today. Lazy as always, but thank you for watching.